While PC-based handhelds are great, they require a bit more setup and aren't as easy to use as traditional consoles. This is why Nintendo has been so dominant in the handheld gaming console space. Their handhelds are intuitive, have a great game library, and deliver decent enough performance to enjoy your favorite games. These are exactly the reasons why the Switch OLED is the best handheld out there, in my opinion, even though it's nearing the end of its life cycle. Compared to the original Switch, the OLED version introduces a bigger and brighter OLED screen, better battery life, and more storage. It also bumps up the internal storage from 32 to 64 gigs. That might not sound like a lot, especially if you download all your games, but still, it's an upgrade. Fortunately, you can expand the storage with an SD card, and they tend to be quite cheap. In terms of design, the console is very similar to the standard and light variants. It's a bit bigger, but not by a lot. Unlike the Switch Lite, it doesn't have a dedicated D-pad, but arrow buttons that function as a D-pad. A dedicated D-pad is always better for diagonal movements and rolling between directions, so this is a bit disappointing. At least the Joy-Cons are detachable, making them easier to replace in the event of stick drift. Also, the Switch OLED has a more robust and improved kickstand than its predecessor. Other than that, this console has the same CPU and RAM as the standard Switch, however, the battery life is a bit better. This is mostly thanks to the efficient OLED screen that completely turns off areas of the screen to display true blacks. The difference might be negligible in some games, but it's noticeable in others. In general, you can expect up to 9 hours of battery life, depending on the game. As this console has the same layout as the other Switch variants, it's just as comfortable and ergonomic. It's much heavier than the Switch Lite, but the weight is distributed well. You won't get tired of playing games on this quickly, and that's important for what's primarily a handheld-focused machine. With that said, you can also use this console in docked mode to hook it up to a TV. The box includes the dock required for this functionality, and certain games play well on the big screen. Unfortunately, there's no 4K support, but there really isn't a handheld out there that can properly handle 4K gaming yet. With the Switch 2 expected sometime next year, this console is nearing the end of its life cycle. However, it's still a great time to buy one. You get instant access to the gigantic library of games, and Nintendo announced that it's still going to be releasing a lot of games in 2024 for this console, and we're even expecting a few new titles in 2025. Still, it's important to note that the Switch platform as a whole does have its problems. For one, all Switch variants use a very weak CPU, and while first-party games run well, several third-party games tend to struggle. The list of games that run well is quite long, but that doesn't excuse the fact that we need a hardware revision for better performance. Despite that complaint, this console still outshines its competition. The Steam Deck is the closest competitor, but as it's a PC-based handheld, it's intended for an entirely different audience. If you care about playing Nintendo games at a cheaper price, the Switch OLED is your best bet. So, if you're looking for a handheld console that's cheaper than the competition, has a better game library, and is easier to use, this is still the best handheld gaming console right now. To sum up, what I like is the fantastic OLED screen, the slightly better battery life than the standard Switch, the improved kickstand, and the superb gaming library. On the downside, some games struggle with performance, and there's no 4K support. Ratings: Game Library, 9.5 out of 10. Performance, 7 out of 10. Screen, 8.5 out of 10. Battery life, 8 out of 10. Value, 9 out of 10, for an overall rating of 8.5 out of 10.